What's up, NIO family? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I'll give you guys a quick update on NIO, Tesla, SPY, and a couple of other tickers. But please note that I am not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total. Not to mention an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. Anyways, for the market, I just want to mention that NIO got a nice little push up about 3.5% for Friday after a very, very monstrous day that came after their earnings came out. So very, very nice day for NIO. The question is, can we hold above this $5 area? If we hold this, we could be going for this gap fill for this 5.25 target next. And if we don't hold this, we do have another gap down here around this 4.84 area. So we'll be watching to see if we dip a little bit to fill this bottom gap first before we see another continuation higher, or if we just continue higher from here. We'll be watching that very, very carefully. Now, just note a couple of things. For Monday, it's going to be September 9th, 2024. There's not really much data coming out. We actually have wholesale inventories at 10 a.m., which is very minor. Then we also have consumer inflationary expectations at 11 a.m. Then at 11:30, we have the 3 and 6 month bill auctions. Everything is very, very minor. For Tuesday, things get more interesting as we have some bill auctions, and also the market's going to be anticipating CPI for Wednesday. Sometimes you get an initial move on Tuesday approaching the big data. There's a good chance we might be looking for a nice move, at least from there. Now, one thing that's also worth noting is the fact that fear is making up the majority of sentiment. People are very fearful right now, expecting the market to dip lower. And SPY, or the S&P 500, is getting closer to its 125 daily moving average, which is going to act as a very, very big support. So we'll see how that holds up the markets. Right now, the put and call option ratio is at extreme fear. When we hit these extremes, we do tend to see the market once again form bottoms. So I do think we're getting closer to that. And then for the VIX, we're still looking bullish for now, but we'll see how this is affected by CPI. For earnings, just know that we don't really have much for the week. We just have Oracle, GameStop, and just a few others like Big Lots on Thursday. But everything else is quite minor. As far as NIO goes, they had earnings that just came out, and I've been looking at the news. I didn't see anything else that's too significant. They did mention that they're expecting 220 plus thousand deliveries for 2024. And Deutsche Bank are coming out expecting 330,000 for 2025. So that's some very, very bullish news as we're seeing some good projections for them. And the growth is expected to be very strong for next year and also for the end of this year for the last quarter. Volume is coming into NIO at 105 million. So it's a good sign. As long as we hold this $5 area, we will continue our push. And then JP Morgan Chase has upgraded NIO from a neutral to an overweight rating. Bank of America Securities gave them a neutral rating, and then Citigroup gave them a buy rating. That's bullish news. So going into tomorrow, it depends on what NIO does. Can we hold this $5 area? We just barely got above this. If we hold above the 5 area, I think we fill the gap up to about 5.25. If we don't hold the $5 area, then we could be tipping down to fill this gap at 4.84. But then we're going to be, we're going to be forming a bottom and then continuing higher later on for that 5.25 target. So it all depends on if we hold support or not. I'm going to be watching that very carefully tomorrow. But I think that ultimately we will fill the gap up to about 5.25. Whether we dip first and then do it, or if we just do it from here, it depends if we can hold $5 or not, but there is potential in this. Now, one thing that's worth noting is that the market overall is still looking pretty weak. SPY is currently at this 540 area, but I presume that we could get very close to 538 again for another retest because that's where our weekly 20 EMA happens to be. So I think we still look kind of bearish. We could dip a little bit more, but there could be a rebound coming later on. So we'll see if 5.3, a 538 holds. If not, we're looking for 536 and 534. If we do come down to fill this gap, we're going to be looking for a big bounce. So I think a dip and a bounce is the most likely move that's going to be coming. I think we should see a bounce by Tuesday. I'm not too sure about Monday, but I'd say by Tuesday we should be looking for a little rebound, if not as soon as Monday. But then we're going to start off with a little bit of a dip. We could dip a little bit more for the broader markets before we see that rebound. So make sure you watch 538, 536 as gap support, then the gap fill around 534 as our supports. We could dip a little bit more towards 538, maybe a little bit lower before we see a little bit of a bounce back into the 540s, at least from there moving forward. That's what I'm anticipating. For Nvidia, we're also selling off a bit on Nvidia. We could get very close to 99. I would say 95 to 100 is where we're going to be looking for some nice support, and we could be looking for a rebound back into the 110s once we reach that level. So we'll see how CPI affects us. That's going to be another big factor. But for now, I think Nvidia might tip a little bit more, approaching this support right over here around 99 area, if not going a little bit lower, before we see a rebound attempt into the 110 area. So watch for that very carefully. For Bitcoin, we're continuing to fall right now. We're actually approaching this low right here, this support. So I'm going to be looking to see if we could hold above our key support right over here. If we end up losing the 52,000 area, we could be dipping all the way down towards 50,000. If we break past 55,000, we're looking for 57,000 as our next target. I think what's going to happen is we dip a little bit more before we try to rebound. So we could be looking for a retest of the lower 54,000 area before we try to push back up to 57,000. For Nvidia, we're dipping right now. I'm sorry, I already went over Nvidia. I meant Tesla. For Tesla, we're continuing to fall right now, but we're going to be watching to see if this trend line holds right here on our 4-hour time frame. This is going to be very, very important. The daily looks kind of weak on Tesla, so I presume it's going to be dipping a little bit more. So I think what's going to happen is we dip a little bit lower towards this 208 area. We'll see if this holds. If it does not hold, we could dip even lower towards 205 before we see a rebound attempt. So we'll see which of these supports we hold. We might dip a little bit more for Tesla before we try to rebound. And once we get a rebound, we'll be returning back into like the 215 area. So we should be dipping towards 208, maybe a little bit lower. We'll have to see where this thing base is. It still looks like it could dip a little bit more, but then there's going to be a rebound back up into the 210s coming. And we'll be watching to see how we end up holding up back above 215. So look for a dip, a little bit of a dip coming to Tesla, back to our main supports. This imbalance should fill at the very least towards 208. Maybe it goes a little bit lower before it tries to rebound. So watch for that. By Tuesday, we should get the rebound. For the QQQ, we're still dumping right now. There's no sign of a bounce. We're going to be looking at 445 as a support. If that does not hold, we could get very close to 440 before we see a rebound attempt back up towards the 450 area. So look for a little bit more downside, and we'll see what the reaction happens to be. For Aapl, we're continuing to fall right now. I could be looking for a retest of the 200 EMA on the 4-hour time frame at this 218 area. If this holds, we could rebound for basically 222. And if we lose 218, we could be dipping down to 215. So look for a test of 218. We'll see if we rebound or not. So that's going to be very important for us moving forward. For the IWM, we're continuing to fall right now. We're going to be looking for basically this 206 area as our support. If that fails us, we could be going all the way down to about 204. I could see this dipping a little bit more to that 206 to 204 area before we see a rebound attempt back up to 210. So look for a little bit more downside, and then we'll see where we end up basing. I'm seeing the same thing going on for like Amazon and the others. I do see some more downside potential in Amazon for that 168 to 170 target before we try to see a rebound. So watch for that. Meta is barely around 499. It is possible we dip lower towards 494, which is historically a strong support. And then if that doesn't hold, we're likely going to be approaching 490. Then we'll see if we bounce off one of those levels. But I do anticipate it might be dipping a little bit more. There's no sign of a bounce yet. So I'll be watching to see if we end up dipping to 494 before we try to rebound. I'll be watching that carefully. Microsoft looks more bearish as well. We could be retesting. If we don't hold 400, I think we could be coming down to fill the gap, taking us all the way down to like 395. But then we should be looking to see if buyers defend us right over there. The last time we had 395, we did see buyers defend us. So look for that gap fill before we see an attempt to rebound. Google's also looking bearish. We'll be looking for a test of 150 by tomorrow. If 150 holds, we could rebound. If not, we're going down to 148. So watch and see. Off one of these, we might see some buyers step in, but I still see a little bit more downside coming before anything else. So the market remains bearish. We may be dipping a little bit lower, and this may have an effect on NIO. We'll have to see about that. We still have good volume on NIO, but I am going to presume that $5 will be a tough resistance. We might not just crack through this. So we'll see if NIO dips a little bit towards the 4.8s before it continues higher for 5.25, or if we just break straight through. We'll have to watch that very carefully. So be very, very patient. Volume looks very good, and nonetheless, the chart is bullish, at least for the short term. So we could be looking for a rebound, but we'll see how we end up reacting. Until I see you guys again, thank you all so much for listening, and peace out.